Peace, everyone. Greetings and Shabbat Shalom to you all. Welcome. Sister Moreyah here.
Savta, Ahava here. Greetings, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
And this evening, we are going to be covering Catch Your Breath. It's really important for us to commune today and just, be in space and be present, be present, share, engage, drop any of the scriptural references or any other, references from sacred texts that you want to share with us that comes to mind as we talk about the breath this evening and catching your breath. Greetings, Chief Yuya. Thank you for being in the space and always, blessing us up with your vibes and your energy and your, just really being in space and being there for us and showing that encouragement. Thank you, Sister Naya. Uh, First on the dial. Thank you so much. Sister Yafe, greetings and welcome. Thank you. Anu Radio, greetings and welcome. Erev Tov to everyone. We are going to start off with just a little bit of music for you. We're gonna try to make sure it's not too loud, too loud for you. But we want to set the tone, and the tone is wellness. The tone is wellness through breath today. The tone is about healing through breath today, and yeah, just catching that divine breath, catching that ruach, so we stay always connected. So let's do it.
All that it is worth. Through smiles we contemplate, memories of our hurt and pain. They just wash away. They just wash away. Lost between
Start, y'all.
times of joy and what follows.
I hope you can hear the music just that.
Wandering through the vines of mist and sorrow. Breathe in the rush of what lies ahead. Behold the worst it dies. Behold the worst it dies behind you. We can be. Your mind, your heart is free. Leave your hurt behind you. Those that seek to define you, let them go, let them go.
All right. So give thanks. Give thanks for just the opportunity to be able to share a piece of Be Well from Chief Yuya can be found on Bandcamp. Um, is so if you're interested and you're looking for it, I'm pretty sure the link might show up in the chat too. That's always a magical thing that we see happening. Um, so give thanks for that music to set the tone for this evening. Um, this evening we're just like jumping into breath, right? And before we even jump in, I just want to give thanks and praise to the most holy one of creation, our Elohim, our most high Elohim, that gives us the opportunity every day to make and be and do more of ourselves and for others. um and Chief Yuya offers that opportunity to us by creating this space, which is our New Life Global Ministries. And so before we jump in and say anything and do anything, we just want to give honor and reverence to the Most High and honors to Chief Yuya for, you know, being head Jegna, being our coverings, being our guide, being our compass, just keeping us on track constantly. Um, and for those of you who are seeking culture and community, this is the space, tap in. Tap in. Thank you for those of you who are in the chat. Welcome. We do apologize. We were trying to get the music together, you know, for 3 whole minutes. um, but we give thanks for just being in the space. And ruach comes to mind when we talk about breath. But we want you to jump in the chat, right? I'm going off a little bit after, just a little bit, because sometimes it takes you all a while to think about your responses and jump in. So before we get to that, we're gonna say take some time and think about a word that comes to mind when you think of ruach and you think of breath. What comes to mind for you? Any word from any language you can think of. If you put something in there we don't understand, be prepared to explain it. Because we're gonna ask. Thank you, Imanaya, for dropping it in the chat. Thank you for dropping that link in the chat. For those of you who are watching now or later, um, the link will be posted and added to the description. But this is it here. Again, Bandcamp is where it's at. You can find it on Spotify as well. All right. I think I see a couple people in the chat. Da, 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 da. So Yakira Eden says life. Um, and Anu Radio says force. So we have life and we have force, right? Those two things.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Glad that everyone's here to fellowship with us this evening. When we were discussing this over the strong about breath, all strong, after the subject first came up, I thought about how important it is, because we take breath, so we take it for granted. We wake up every day and we draw in a breath and we never think twice about it, when that is the opportunity, that first breath in the dawning, each dawning, that's our connection to the Most High Yah. That's how we know that we're still here. Of course, you wouldn't know if you didn't take a breath, because you wouldn't wake up. But that is something that we take for granted. I remember the first time I struggled with breath was when I was learning to swim. And when you jump in the water, you learn how important it is when you get under, and you can't breathe water. We don't breathe in water. So right away you know something's missing, and it's a life force, as achoti Moreyah mentioned, and as the words that are coming forth now, like life force. Think of airflow, spirit, ruach. Yes, I think spirit as well. Ima Sukoyo was saying, and the breath is called ruach kadesh, divine breath, also referred to by some people in some religions as the Holy Spirit. By some, Ruach is the Hebrew word for breath or spirit, and Kadesh is the Hebrew word for sacred. So we're not just talking about breathing, we're talking about divine breath, and that's where the healing that Akoti Moreyah was speaking about, that's where the life force comes in. Of course, again, we don't live without breath. Genesis 2:7 says, "And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." So, up until that point, there was no life until that breath was breathed in. And, you know, again, to make the distinction between divine breath, being filled with the Spirit of the Most High is being filled with that divine breath. And if we're living by the Spirit, that position of our heart is oriented towards and in sync with the Most High. So, just how do we do that? Or are we doing that? Are we in sync? Or are we taking our breath for granted every time we draw it? And the older I get, the less I take for granted, especially the things that, have been given to us, without us deserving or earning it. We get that breath. No, we didn't earn it, and again, sometimes when you don't earn or work for something, you do end up taking it for granted. So, and we are living by the Spirit. So again, that's where our heart chakra acts as an individual center for that compassion and that empathy and that love and forgiveness. And that's also part of being filled with the Spirit of the Most High. Um, Savta, Gertrude, and myself, when we were in the womb, we were all given a certain quality that we needed. And Savta and I, ours was being filled with the Spirit of the Most High. And during that time, I really began to zero in on the things that I just hadn't even thought about, which is why I ended up here in a New Life Global Ministry today. Because once you have that divine breath, or you seek it, or it's something you're longing for, you can't be without. You can't have divine breath and not be connected to Yah, whether in thought or in some kind of way. So,
As you're sharing, I think of a story that's how we even started talking about catching your breath, and the idea of catching your breath being connected to tapping into our creator, right? Because later on we're going to talk about what happens when you what do you call it? You get winded, you lose your breath, right? um, but I was fascinated by the idea of whales, right? That come up for air. I actually saw this little clip and I was like, okay, no, let me double check this information. And they were actually saying like the whales drown. That's how they die, right? They have to come up for air. They have to constantly make contact with that breath in order to survive in the environment that they live in. And we are the same way. We have to come up for air. We have to catch our breath. And the breath that we're talking about catching is that divine breath. I mean, we breathe in every day, but do we pause to really connect to our Elohim through breath, right? And we'll talk a little bit later on about, pranayam and other things that we can do, and breath work that we can actually do to support and to assist in that quieting that needs to happen. Um, and just the respect of the breath as well too, because I think we do take it for granted. We do take that breath for granted. And we talk about rock being connected to spirit and so on, but it's also correlated to and can connect to, again, breath, wind, um, and spirit. So those are connections that we're making this evening. And for those of you who are sharing still, I think Yafe says Ruach. Ima Sequoia says, I think of spirit as well. And Anu Radio offered some context to her share on force, right? So she says, I brought up force because I was thinking about the muscles that have to engage when we say Ruach. Wow. What muscles? Tell us what muscles. Ruach. Just say it. Ruach. Look at how much my jaw is involved. My lips begin to, create that sound to take in and expel air. And my tongue's doing all sorts of things. So I don't know. But thank you for that just thinking about all of what is involved, but that's only what's on the face. We haven't even spoken about the lungs and what's involved in the expelling and the intake of the breath. It seems, she says, it seems very intentional. Master Menelek says, I think of movement as well. Can you expand a little bit, Master Menelek, when you say movement? Um, Maybe you could click the link in the chat and join us and share what do you mean when you say you think of movement. Ima Akuya says, I think of life force as well, which moves in many ways like wisdom. Mm. Mm. And when you think about the breath work that we can do, it helps us to tap in, it helps us to connect. It's actually the rhythmic pattern of breathing that can send us into trance. When you think about meditation and you think about, and we're not saying meditation and we're going to meditate all day, because she speaks about people who are, those of us who are, just like, we know earthly good. We so heavily like connected and focused, like we know earthly good. So, making sure that balance is present all the time. Imanaya put in Ruach. But the Luther scholar, what are those? Oh, whales. Okay. I was like, why is that smoke in the thing? Whales. Sorry. Sister Yafe says, I also think of reciprocity. You can't inhale without the corresponding exhale, and vice versa. This is true. This is true. There is that pattern and reciprocity of the inhale and exhale. I think of breath of fire as well. Right, 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 right. And we'll talk a little bit about pranayama a little bit later on, but even then, like, there are some breathing patterns that can heat up your core, you know, um, and then maybe you have to actually pause and catch your breath for real, real, but we're just going to continue to talk about the spirit and of the Most High and the breath, that breath of life. And the important thing too is to think about the fact that that breath animates all living things, all living beings, right? We see that in Ecclesiastes 3:19. It speaks, and I'll pull and just read a little piece of it. But we also have other references too. We have other sacred texts that we're going to share this evening. So not just from the Bible, but I will say Ecclesiastes 19:3-19 says they all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beast for all his vanity. The larger, I mean, you can pause and read the larger verse, but I just wanted to read that little section that speaks of all having the same breath, right? All having.
Mhm. Master Menelik is saying, when I said movement, I was imagining the movement of wind and oxygen circulating through one's body, even subtle movement of lungs and chest, and when breathing easily. That, yeah, and that is so perfect because, again, when we talk about ruach, we talk about wind. We talk about, it's also wind. So that movement does come to mind. Toda for that, Master Milak. Chief says, I think of inspiration When children have a new idea, the face opens and the head lifts, and a deep breath is brought into the lungs. They bring that spirit all through the cell in their all that spirit all through the cells in their bodies. I know exactly what you're saying. I've seen that look and how their eyes will kind of roll up and they know they have an idea. That is so, that breath becomes more prominent. It's you can actually see that inhaling and that exhaling as that idea is flowing. I like that inspiration. I hadn't thought of that, but we can always count on our chief Jetna to bring that one thing that maybe you hadn't thought of.
Of course, I'm on mute, chatting away. Oh my gosh. Um, yeah, I was saying, that we know that inspiration is to be in spirit, so just the example that he gave, the face opens, the head lifts, like you see the excitement. Um, and the willingness to share, and the deep breath. It's almost like they're catching their breath because of the excitement and the spirit that's being, like moving through them to share, and hmm, there's no shame there, there's no embarrassment, there's no reluctance at all in those moments. It's just, all it is that willingness to share, that willingness to be able to breathe out and share. So thank you for that, like that visual, chief. And like you always say, they're easy, is look at them, like we should be moving in that way, that light, very fluid way that youth tend to move, if like if they're not influenced by life and the craziness.
That brings me to my first question. I'd like to know if you can recall a time when you had an idea or an experience that took your breath away, and because the idea came to me when Chief brought up the inspiration, because I can, I think of sometimes when I got overly excited and I had to catch my breath. So please share if you can think of a time when you had a experience or a situation that actually took your breath away.
There's so many. I think maybe I can share a few. I'll share this one though. I'll share this one really quickly. I'll try to share it really quickly. It doesn't involve it involves people, but we were all standing around listening to a bunch of crows chatting away, just going. I was actually walking through the neighborhood and they were just constantly, and I'm looking around trying to figure out where they were. They were all hanging out in this huge pine tree. I've never seen a pine tree so large. Never. Absolutely not. There were probably about 50 of them just chattering. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is the council meeting for? What's happening here? I paused. I paused, I stopped. And most times, people take out a phone, but I literally was in the middle of thinking 100 thoughts at the same time, trying to figure out why, are these crows just all hanging out here, and who they're arguing with, what's happening. I paused and started looking, and I realized that they were not just hanging out in the trees, they were chattering, but also diving and flying off and then diving into the tree. After a while, I see a hawk emerge from the tree, wings spread, and it has an animal in its mouth, right? Maybe a squirrel or something. And he lands, and as he lands, is chilling. Listen, I know for sure I did not breathe for probably about 5, 10 minutes. That's not real. But I was literally, and I know there are other moments that are serious when people lose their breath, like you get winded. But at that moment, it was the awe and the magnificence of what the creator put in front of me to watch and witness. And at no point did I have to take out my phone. I was like, whoa, I could take out my phone and share it. I was like, no, it will forever be imprinted on your mind. I was sitting there, standing there, sorry, doing this the entire time, watching all of these crows constantly. They were bullying him. Literally, I'm putting human experiences on their experience, but they weren't really bullying him because, like she says, like, do they care? Except for the food that they were fighting for. Clearly, it's either he took the food from one of them, or this was his catch and his prey, and they just would not leave him alone. They I call it dive bombed. They were dive bombing him for a good 3 minutes. Three will come down, they literally would slap against his wing and then fly off, and three more would just come down, and they're just going constantly. This was a whole 10 minutes. And he was just there eating, looking around, watching them, moving, and then just continuing on. I lost my breath in that moment because I couldn't believe that that was nature just unfolding in front of me. And I was not looking at it through a screen. I was not trying to record it for someone, but I recorded it here and I just shared it with y'all. Download. Yeah. Like literally.
Oh my goodness. I Akote Yafe said, what about breath also signifying change? When we think of a wind moving through a space, we think of something coming or changing. And that is so true. It's like I've heard people say, and I've actually experienced it when you say, I feel the winds of change, like something's coming, something's going to change. And it's caught me off guard. And when I got that feeling, it it never failed. Something changed, or there was something unexpected that happened. And I now that I think about that divine breath, I think if that was something giving me a spiritual warning of some sort within myself, that connection. And when you were saying that, I just related it to an incident I remember having when I lost my breath. I mean, that it really scared me. I call myself trying to climb. I had a neighbor friend and a young boy. I think we were probably he was 7 and I think I was 6, and we had all these trees in our yard. And I remember he would always climb these trees, and I would think, I want to do that. And he would always tell me, no, don't climb the tree. You stay down there. Because we had fruit trees, like we had apples, we had peaches, we had walnuts. And he would always climb and get the good ones for me. He said, just stay down, you know. And little did I know that was my first experience with the male female role, because he said, you just wait right down there and I'll bring you an apple. I'll bring you the best one. And but one time I'm like, he's taking too long and I'm gonna follow him up the tree. And I remember following him, climbing that tree, and I didn't get very far before I slipped and I fell on my back and it knocked the air out of me. And I had to lay there for a minute and think, oh, I should have listened, you know. But it was a shock because, again, when breath leaves your body that fast, and of course, I didn't know what was going on, but I've always remembered that was one of those things, like you said, that was imprinted in my mind. And of course, I didn't climb trees after that, you know. That taught me very well.
That's
So, but yeah, that was just one of those things. Um, what's going on? We've got all kind of good stuff going on in the chat over here. Uh, Imana, Achoti says, "R, when the rock was blown into Adam, he was then living instead of just clay." That's right. That's when he became that living soul. And Imaniah says, seeing a mid-sized turtle trying to cross the street, stopping to try and move him along so he didn't get crushed, seeing the patterns of the clouds in the sky and how the sun rays beam and how the sun ray beams from behind them. Yeah, those are breathtaking moments. Um, I, I can actually relate to that one when I actually first seen the clouds move, because they always seem to be still. And the weather was changing one day, and when the clouds moved, that was breathtaking also. Very much so.
I think of I think of Yahweh's statement, that Adama became living instead of just clay. So breath animates the clay of our being, and so that I think it's really critical in our conversation this evening, like our build this evening, because it speaks to being able to tap in and pause and tap into the original source and force of who we are, right? And not just get stuck in this physical uh, clay body that is no longer and will no longer be animated for, lack of breath. If we didn't have that, what would be? We what would we be? We'll return to our source, and our source and our original, the original or doppelganger is not this human physical body. That's our soul, right? And as far as I know, our soul doesn't have a body, right? So, well, this soul is reflecting in this body right now, right? Um, so it just makes me think about how important it is for us to tap back into our creator. That's what we want catching your breath.
Hmm.
The catching your breath is how you go for air, you're going to your high for that air, that precious animating force, um, and never focusing on all of the physical things and thinking that those things is what actually animates us, down to food, down to physical sustenance, food. There are people who are breatharians, and the Tao talks about the Tao Te Ching talks about breath. It says like the Tao is breath that never dies, right? So it makes me think about the fact that wind and breath and spirit is just in a constant cycle, moving through and animating things and beings, and organisms in our space. But it doesn't go away, like it's always here, and we can always tap into it.
Right. When you were speaking, it made me think of what she was saying. And I was actually thinking of it, and I was thinking, that's right, the clay. But it for us, that actually broke down for me the difference between divine breath and just breath. Because when you think about animals and how they breathe, in order to live, but when you think about that divine breath, it makes me wonder. Well, it doesn't make me wonder. What it makes me think about is when I wasn't focused or or on the divine part of the breath, you know, and my life was very different because I was just kind of moving from day to day, doing my own thing, believing what I wanted to believe, living how I wanted to live, being reckless to a certain degree, you know, because that divine breath was not, I wasn't catching that divine breath. I was just in that taking for granted the breathing, the in and out at that point. So, yeah, it did make me think of the difference because not only did it bring life, but it brought a lot of different things to mind as far as the change when it's just breath and when it's the Ruach Kadesh.
Like Sister Anu Radio says, she lost her breath catapulting off of the ATV once. So yeah, that will make you lose your breath, your mind, and your body. your, your, your spirit probably left your body like 3 times and came back. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. No, it's not too soon for a conversation about that. That was like a whole year ago. It is not too soon. Everything is healed. She is fine and wonderful. She has superhuman grip strength now. She is good. The breath left her and returned. Um, they are laughing and cracking up in the chat over that. So Sister Kuya says sis had to catch her breath because the tree caught her face. Oh my gosh. All right, I won't read these things because it's wrong. Sorry, I know it. Well, I know radio, it is out. Clearly, it is not too soon because here, I just spoke about it live on camera. So there you go. Master Manilek says she's triggered. Don't be triggered, sis. Don't be triggered. Unless you want to come on live and give us the story as told from your point of view. That's right. Because maybe we're missing something. We all just cackling over the fact that you lost your breath, but maybe there was something else happening. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can scroll down. She says I was kicked so hard in the chest before that I couldn't take deep breaths for almost 3 months. It brought an awareness to the value of breathing, which I hadn't considered before. Wow. Wow. So what you said reminded me of one time that was a very long time ago when I took uh judo. I caught myself taking judo. That's when I was in Cuba. But get it, I was thrown on that floor so many times. It's not even funny. And you can't even. You're trying to hustle and to get back up, but you can't even find the oxygen in your lungs. It's like, wait, hold on. Yeah, I was never kicked, so I don't know what that was like. But to be thrown, yeah, it's kind of like you lost your mind and your body. Everything. It's like the clay part is sitting here and your breath is out there and your mind another place. Oh my goodness. Well, I think Safta has a story. Safta has a story about that struggle to breathe, and I guess the appreciation that comes after it, right? And as you said, Chief, the awareness that comes after that type of experience, because you see the value of having the breath inside your lungs, not, like outside.
And it's so funny because, well, when I think back over the years when I smoked cigarettes and, I didn't exercise and the different things, again, that was a time in my life when I took my breath for granted. And a year ago, for the first time, I had pneumonia. And I never struggled to breathe. And it was kind of weird because I have a CPAP machine, which is not an oxygen machine. But I was struggling trying to breathe. So I had 2 different CPAP machines all pulled out with tubes. And I'm sitting there trying to grab some breath and when you say the breath on the outside of you. And I just held the hose in my face and blew. And my daughter walked in and she goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I can't breathe." She goes, that's not oxygen." put your shoes on. Let's go. You know? She goes, that's a, why didn't you say something? That's not even oxygen. Let's go. So I get to the hospital, and when I walk in, um, the lady at the front counter, she looked at me. Now, I'm not light skinned, but I tell you, when I tell you I was an ashy purple color, that was because I could not, I could get
Like
little,
skin, like
yeah,
skin.
little short breaths. I was ashy looking. And right away
Ash.
she said, huh?
No,
She
I'm teasing you. I'm sorry.
She told me, she said, you just come on up to the counter. I must have looked like I was right there at the gates, you know, because she pulled me. It was other people in the lobby, and she pulled me up to, and then took me right to the back and put me on oxygen. And I tell you, there's nothing you don't, there's nothing like not being able to draw breath. That was my first experience where I could actually not draw breath into my lungs. And, now that I had that experience, I think about that when it comes to that connection with the Most High, that divine breath, because I would be just as devastated if I lost that connection, because it's the difference between night and day. Chief had said in the chat that we were talking about that ATV um, incident. He said we were going to scare people away from the retreat.
Right.
Let me tell you, we had well, I wasn't on that particular one, but all the other retreats I've been on, there's so much fun. I mean, accidents happen no matter where you are, and we come equipped with nurses, y'all. We actually have medical professionals that are with us within a news. So you can't ever be in greater hands, not to, also just to speak of that divine breath. And I'm sure our sister, she caught her breath very quickly after that, because I saw the excuse about the rain, which it was none.
Right. It was
There
not
was
raining.
no rain.
Raining on mine. So that breath left you, you were, hallucinating.
Oh,
But yeah.
yeah, I could relate to Chief Yuya. It didn't take me 3 months. I can imagine not being able to draw in that breath. What did he
I'm so sorry. I'm rocking because, like she says, we're laughing at him being kicked in the chest and all of that. Oh my goodness. His brother gets so nurturing.
Yeah,
Oh, oh, oh my goodness.
but thank God, or thank the Most High, we got breath today. You
Yeah.
know, we have it today.
Oh, you're muted. Were you finished? You were muted.
Oh, well, basically, just the idea of having, I remember thinking, laying there, they would come in and give me these breathing treatments. And I was actually in a new at that time. So I knew what to do. You know, in between the treatments, I had my new way, and I had my podcast. And it's a whole different world when something goes wrong, like me physically losing my breath. Because I think about what in the Quran, you know, um, in the Quran, the breath is related to the physical and the spiritual life of the human being. And spirit breath is used in the Quran 21 times, referring to divine spirit and the sense it's a communication of life force. That's what it refers to, being the communication of the life force. And often, it's interpreted immortal element of living being, as well as the true self or the soul apart from the body. But Allah uses the word na, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correct, nafas, for his own breath. And he uses ruh, it's spelled ruh, ra, ruh, for his own soul. And these are the same words used to mean the human breath and the human soul. So what that tells me, it's confirming that the fact that we are originally from Allah and Allah and for Allah, and Allah is in the end, we will return to Allah. And that's how the Quran, and correct me when I'm wrong, because I want to say Quran.
Oh, it's
But, and I'm really working on my vocabulary as far as pronunciation, but it just tells me how connected we are. Because again, when that, as Akoti Yafe mentioned, we were just a lump of clay until the Most High breathed that life force into us. And in the Quran, it says we're of Him, for Him, and at the end of the day, we're going to return back to Him. So that's a whole nother story that comes with a new. But
as you shared that, I actually I was digging into a couple of references and just looking at a reference from the Book of Mormon, but also one from the Quran that, and I realized the one from, there were two, one from the Book of Mormon, one from the Quran, and they reflected that idea of the breath being breathed into man or Adam. And but the one that I wanted to share is connected to what you're sharing is Surah Al-An'am 6:126 and 125. And it says, Allah says, so whoever Allah wants to guide, He expands His breast to contain Islam, right? And you think about the breast, you think about the lung, the chest area, and the expanding that happens, that the expanding that Master Menelek actually articulated, that happens when, like we're breathing. And it says, for whoever he wants to misguide, he makes his breast tight and constricted, as though he were climbing into the sky. Thus does Allah place defilement upon those who do not believe. So there's that reference of the reciprocity, right? The inhaling and the exhaling, but there's that idea of the expanding of the breast, and that being, yeah, you're filled with life and you're filled with Allah and Islam, and the wisdom of that spirit brings, and then the constricting that happens, which means it's like it's empty. He speaks about the breast being tight. So there's that direct connection between, I see it like it's saying there's a direct connection between a person being filled with the breath, who is on their path, who is spiritually, like in a spiritual state and at a spiritual level, and they're pursuing the law of Allah or the law of the Most High, as opposed to someone who is not, right? And I just thought it was interesting the way it shows that contrast between one who is expanding and is filled with, versus the restricted, the tightened chest or breast, and not having that breath you know
in the chat, it's funny.
oh yeah.
Yafe Yamina. So Chief says she's freaking laughing at me being kicked in the chest. Oh my goodness. The cold hand of the new womb brothers get no nurturing over here. And Imaquia says, geez, Chief, where were your ribs bruised? Um, and Master Menelik says, I fell out of a tree once when I was young and took a very sharp grasp when it hit me that none of the branches I grabbed had my back. So you missed them all on the way down. Kuti Yafe said, I can relate, Chief, wasn't kicked in the chest, but was thrown from a moving treadmill. Ouch. Treadmill belt. You appreciate breath when it goes on vacation. Absolutely. Yeah, when it's not there at your beck and call. Imaquia says, no, I'm feeling for you, Chief. That sounds painful. And Imaquia says, one may also need to catch their breath when punched in the stomach. Ouch. Yeah. That I haven't had that experience, thank goodness. And Master says, I remember that treadmill story, achoti. And Chief says, I don't know, Ima Akuya. That's back when I used water and walking to heal. Pride wouldn't have me get checked out. I'm okay now, I guess, as long as my spleen doesn't slip out my short rib one day. My goodness.
What is what is this?
Oh my goodness. You talk about self healing. Yeah. Well, he's able to take a deep breath now, so we all know that he's filled with divine breath. So that's
Well, what did
awesome.
he say? Did you hear what he said he was using for healing before? Walking and water? Walking and
Yeah, that was his healing.
yeah,
Yeah, most of us would have been crawling. I
right.
would have been grasping for air. But yeah, I tell you, it's important. And even being on a treadmill, because now every day, being able to walk 2 miles, I mean, I was younger, I couldn't walk or run 2 miles. And and I noticed that I breathe easier at this point once you exercise. So what
I
did
just
you say, Master Miller? Like he said, you're not light skinned it. Oh,
yes. Did he say that? Oh my gosh, he said that.
oh, but I'm light enough to be able to tell I was purple when I couldn't breathe.
Right. Oh, sugars.
But you know what they say, we people who are darker than blue.
Greetings,
Oh, so
Jason. Greetings, Jason. Welcome. Welcome. We are cracking up over here. Well, Savta and I are trying to have, a deliberation about catching your breath while the chat goes wild. While the chat goes wild with several episodes of, people being kicked in the chest, healing from water and walking, and their spleens slipping out on occasion. Yeah. So, while we have others flying from ATVs into trees, hanging off of tree branches for no reason. So I don't know. I don't know. For those of you who are joining us after, we have a ball, and this is a representation. All of the laughter and the joking and the fun times that are being spoken of in the chat. Um, this is a part of the peek behind the veil that you get when decide to participate in the retreat. When you decide, okay, yeah, no, our new retreat is going on in summer of this year, in August of this year. I am gonna be there. Um, because there are all of these experiences to enjoy. There's more. We have a whole water filter fire starter experience to laugh about as well too. There's the music, there's just so much, but it's as easy as the conversation that's happening in the chat right now. It's as chill, it's as fun, and equally enlightening as well, and inspiring. So yeah, what you're experiencing is just a peak, is just a little, bit of what is.
and you'll get a chance to catch your breath because I never knew you could have so much fun, you know, and not be doing all the wrong things, but really healthy, wholesome, community building, bonding, being transparent. And if you're not, you learn to be because we leave no stones unturned. I mean, we get to know each other. If you snore, we get to know about that, and you might get teased a little bit, but it's all good. Because again, even in snoring, you got to be able to breathe.
Right,
So we're not going to call no names, but it
right.
happens to the
Oh
best
boy.
of us. Jason says,
Mhm.
we all talking about losing the breath. Shoot them punches and kicked to the solar plex, feeling the need to, what does that say, punk, and can't breathe at the same time. So
Punched. Like,
punch. Oh,
oh,
okay.
the need to puke. Oh, I see it.
Oh, feeling the need to
The
puke
need
and
to
can't
puke.
breathe at the same. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. That's a horrible experience. Been there. Chief Yuya says, cheaters never prosper, Imakuya. My coach whispered in my ear, one good shot deserves another. That was my green light to go savage. Oh, so you might have lost your breath getting kicked in the chest, but we wonder what he lost.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I wonder how long he went without breathing.
Well, all I'll say is hashtag slice, slice.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm talking about. You know. And if you don't know, well, yeah. Akil
yeah.
Karar. Akil Karar says, when I got jumped punched in the gut, enough said. Wow. Oh my gosh. These brothers have these very horrific, chief, just somebody just stamped you out in the chest, and left you for, a loss. And I think it was, who was it, Jason, that shared that whole idea of being punched and kicked. Wow. The experiences that the brothers are sharing are really like violent sounding. Like y'all been in a street fights or something. Street fights. She says, so true, Jason. Those center line body hits will cause you to lose breath, hearing, and slightly, temporarily. I've been hit so hard before that I only saw gray for like 60 seconds. How did what was your body doing at that moment? Like, were you stumbling? I can't imagine how you see gray for 60 seconds. You're on the floor at that point. Like, what's happening? I don't know. I want details, I guess, because I'm like, yeah, those experiences are really hard. You all are sharing. I I was talking about looking at crows and a hawk, not that. You know. Yafe says, I hear they got surgical glue and duct tape for those types of things. She she says you got jumped in. Jumped into what?
So now it's out. Now we get it. You got jumped in, not jumped on.
Jumped on. Oh my
He said
God.
no sympathy for that one.
Oh boy. Oh, that was El Carrara in the tree. Okay. Eva Sequoia, you are funny and lively in the chat today, boy. All right. All right. No one is serious. All right. We need that laughter. Laughter is good healing. So laugh it up. Enjoy yourselves. Eva Sequoia says, well, I was going to share a positive experience, but I remember getting my nose packed. So painful. Your nose packed? Why? Why was your nose packed? What is a nose packing? What is that exactly? Can you share a little bit more? She says the doctor didn't even warn me. I was shocked. Darn. I don't even know. Why was your nose packed, sis? What was happening?
But even thinking about that, because again, not even realizing that we don't just breathe through our mouth, we breathe through our nose also. So when somebody, cuts that off, that's an airway that is now restricted. So she said, I was shocked. So just in that idea of having your nose packed, yeah, it's like when you have a cold, and you walk around like somebody got a clothespin on your nose because that airway is no longer, useful. So, but yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more
It,
about that too.
yeah, it's a superior. When we talk about catching our breath, it's a superior form of breathing. Breathing through our mouths actually restricts us, and breathing, but breathing through the nose actually helps us to control breath. It helps us with when we decide to move and go into meditation too. And there, again, there are other forms of breathing. Mouth breathing is an actual thing, it's a healing modality. But that idea of using the breath and taking in breath, sorry, through the nostrils also helps us to control breath easier as well too. Um, so just, and I think as we're talking about all of this, I think about sleep apnea. I think of people who have sleep apnea where that breath is cut short, right? And I know it actually interrupts their ability to sleep because every time that breath is cut short, eventually you'll be jolted out of your sleep, kind of like the whale having to come up for breath and having to like go back down and then come up for breath in a sense and go back down. So just thinking about a person like that and how we in our own journey on in our own lives we exhibit sleep apnea in a sense that we don't have the condition, but we cut off our breath willingly. We do it because of disobedience, because of thinking that our way is the only way, and the entire experience that we're having in the world exists here. The sum total of the world is this right here, these two things. It's not even four corners. Imagine that. Imagine that. So we do cut ourselves off from that breath, and then we're leaning on something else, but we always spiral down, and the Quran speaks of that. Like, it speaks of just honoring those who have the breath, and when breath is pulled away, that's when the man falls. So we think of when we pull away from that tapping in that we must do to the Creator or the Most High, and that tapping into the divine breath, or being filled with the Spirit of the Most High. When we pull away from that infilling, we're turning away. We're turning away from what gives us life, what gives us purpose. I just think of all those things come to mind when I think of the idea of catching the breath, and the correlations between breath and the connection to the Most High being that breath for us, even down to providing it and animating us. So it's crucial to tap in every day, and that tapping in could be in the form of meditation, where the focus is on breathing patterns and trance work. Um, for many, I know for Chief has shared before, like the men divide the word. They are required to rightly divide the word, right? So it means that they're communing and connecting with that knowledge that's in the word, right? That's a connecting and a communing with the Most High. That's a tapping in that they're constantly doing, and we have to do the same even as sisters. We can't divide the word, but we have to be attached, covered, and connected to a man who can rightly divide the word and disseminate it to us. um, and the truth is, if you don't have that, then it means you're probably carrying around an oxygen tank that's almost empty. Right? So yeah, I think you need to think about the breath. What's keeping you alive? Because it then is not breath, and it means that you're not being animated by the Spirit of the Most High. And I don't know what's happening in the chat, and I don't even want to look. I don't. Something saying do not look. All I saw was snoring references. Uh, Snoring was a gift that keeps on giving. Oh my gosh. I won't even call name. I won't even say. Oh, she says she's here for it. All right. So since you're here for it, I think I missed a couple of other things after.
We were I was looking at where Jason was sharing that the best accomplishments, he said, Chief Yuya, best accomplishments are when you get hit with those and don't drop in the pocket, covering up till it passes. The lucky times when you don't show you're hurt and when the opponent didn't. Yeah, and the opponent didn't know. So he hit you in the gut, and you're just covering up, but you're not letting them know you're out of breath, and you're not dropping down. You just handling it. That means you got that reserve breath online. You know, at least that's the way I think about it. And he don't even know he hurt you. A new radio says, I agree. The retreats always catch up give me a chance to catch my breath, just to slow down and be in nature. I don't take those moments for granted. You know, even though we're always busy, we got different things going on, and I'm always rested when I get back home. And I was thinking, gosh, I went nonstop. Matter of fact, I even stayed up way past my bedtime around the campfire because I didn't want to miss anything.
Right.
That's when the good stuff starts. When we get around the campfire, and everybody's talking, and Chief is always in a teaching mood. You can't even be around him without learning something, you know. So that's when we really, I mean, I didn't want to go to bed. And then when I finally did make it to bed, it was like lights out. I didn't even lay there for 3 minutes staring at the ceiling, which is usually my MO. I don't ever go right to sleep. But on those retreats, I did, and woke up, with that connection, that breath, the very next moment, ready for some more. So I agree, a new radio. The retreats, you do get a chance to catch your breath. Ima Quia said, oh, you had to mention it. Well, I didn't mention no names.
Oh,
So talk about a breathing experience. This is Master Benelek. He says, talk about a breathing experience. I can only imagine discovering a bear in the mist. Yeah, when it's something growling around. But again, that's another one of those inside jokes for the retreat. And Chief says, let me see if I'm pronouncing this right. Diaphragmic breathing can be so healing too. Children breathe like that. That kind of breathing removes confusion, and wise, you learn to flow and accept it. Yes, it's really something because I, as an adult, learned how to breathe correctly. I always wondered why I was short of breath, and nobody ever really took the time, even when I was running or doing exercises. I guess they didn't notice I wasn't breathing correctly. And matter of fact, Aki Isaiah, my covering, he'll hear me moving around the house sometimes, and he'll come in and he'll say, I can hear you breathing. You need to breathe from your diaphragm. You need to from your stomach. And it needs, and he's constant because it's not, I haven't done it I have to pay attention how I'm breathing, is what I'm saying, in order to breathe correctly. Because I got so used to doing it wrong that now I actually, when I meditate, I have to do breathing exercises to go into it, the inhaling and expansion, and then the exhaling and the deflation. And after I do it a few times, it's like I get on a roll. But yeah, I probably did it correctly as a child, but as an adult, I got out of sync. I didn't breathe correctly. Imanaya says, not the snoring reference. That sounds smooth. Soothes me to sleep. Well, that's different. That's different. I had a family member that snored so bad that we had to have earplugs. So, and back in the day, that's when they say you calling the hogs because you calling them across the field out in the meadow. They calling them home. But Master Minilek says, good points off that the fun at the retreat is wholesome and pure. Yes, you actually, it's like having a good time. And coming from my background, a good time without breaking rules and laws and doing things wrong, that's really special, especially when you remember how good of a time you had. It's really good. So Alpha Woman, Yakira Eden said, oh boy, the snoring was a gift that keeps on giving indeed. The chief says she's still cracking jokes. Jeez. Ima Kuya says, listen, I'm here for it. Chief says, my grandmother used to laugh at fights. I thought that spirit died with her, but it poses, it possessed achoti Moreyah too.
I was concerned. It's just that there's this this thing that comes over me when men start talking about they were in a fight. They start talking about they had this done and that done, and then I'm like, can you imagine what that looks like? I'm
Wow.
there already. Like my mind, I'm there already. Because like, this is, you see the all of the testosterone and see all of the it comes out. So
I know you're concerned.
oh gosh, and look, laughed already. She couldn't even keep a straight face. Hmm. Um, I think we're so far behind. There's so much happening in the chat. Um, but let me see if I could scroll back and find out where we were. Oh, um, yes, Chief, I did feel safe, and y'all were safe too, because the snores kept the coyotes away. This is true. This is true. You
Oh,
know?
so Ima Aquia, she said, yes, I do snore. And Chief says, oh, before that, Chief says, Aki El Karar says, well, before that time, I was jumped, but that one time I was jumped in. So yeah, he was jumped in. And then Chief says, Imaquia, you don't snore, you growl and roar. Sounds like 15 Mandingo warriors trying to claw their way out of your chest. Good grief. He says, but it's an honor to hear that snore. Means you feel safe. That's right, because she be sleep, for real sleep.
Is that what the reference to the bear was about last time?
I missed it.
Too, but now I think I understand. No, delayed. Oh my goodness.
Oh, so she had a nosebleed. Ima Queer was referring back to Ima Sequoia. Remember when she said she had her nose packed?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Oh,
she was, I think she's talking about she had a nosebleed. And Kotiyase Face says, when your nose bleeding and they stuff all them tissues up it. Yes.
it said they put on gauze up there. Okay. It's as horrible as that song. Yeah. It, yeah. I had something else in mind when you were saying nose packing. I was like, what is that? Thought of something else. She says, yeah, I have administered nasal pack too. It helps blood to clot if you've been hit in the nose or had nose surgery. Some of them just break up with moisture, and others you have to pull back out. Um, Interesting. Um, uh, Let me see. Makuya says, yeah, Faye, they are like tampons for the nose. Huh? Okay, I'm moving on. Real fast. What's the medical acronym for getting your nose packed? Uh, I have no clue. Uh, I sure don't know. Uh, and something else. Oh boy. um, She says, but you don't want to soak the blood. You also want it to clot. I only have experience as a cut man in a fighter's corner, though. Oh, they're talking about nosebleeds and so on. Uh, all right. I think I'm scrolling down. I'm just gonna scroll past the fights. She says, I've never had to receive one, but when you're fighting, you use them often if someone gets their nose cracked. I see. They stuff those things up. I've seen some of those fights too, where like they have it looks like a white thing protruding from the nostrils. Yeah. I guess it does help to keep, I don't know, to I don't know, cushion it. Or to keep it, if it's like broken, it's supposed to keep it straight. I don't know. Oh boy. Who's stuffing things up their nose and losing their breath? Oh my gosh. Uh, Alpha Woman now says, no, Imanaya, you stay away from the tampon decongestants for everyone. You're dangerous. Oh my gosh. This is going far left, y'all. She says, I didn't even realize my breathing was messed up until the next day. In the moment, I was just super focused and ready to let him know I could stand and deliver worse. Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Like that makes me think of how, even if your nose is blocked or damaged, you spoke about the mouth breathing, um, but just even if the nose is blocked sometimes and someone is not breathing through the mouth, any amount of air or oxygen, sorry, getting in um, is actually helpful. And you don't realize it until I don't know if you've ever tried to force yourself to pay attention to your breathing patterns. And then you realize, oh gosh, I have to actually think about breathing. And it kind of, like it kind of gets scary. But then afterward, it's an involuntary reaction. So your body just, you forget about it and you just continue breathing as normal, and I wonder if that's what happens at times when we mess up the pathway, right? As she said, like he didn't even recognize that it was messed up until the next day, because you're surviving, your body's still taking in air. Sometimes we breathe through the mouth, we don't even realize we're taking in air that way. And it's not until you pause to pay attention to your patterns you realize, oh, like I'm breathing through my mouth, or I don't have a clear passageway.
And speaking of those nosebleeds, I had nosebleeds whenever I would just get overheated as a baby. And my mom, I had them so often that she took me to the doctor. And he said, oh, just cool her down. It'll stop. But it's something because I passed it on. And all three of my youth, as between the ages of 1 year to 4 years old, they had frequent nosebleeds all the time. I was just looking at what Chief was saying. He says, I always thought people with frequent nosebleeds should have some sort of superpower, telekinesis or something. If not, you're just randomly leaking plasma whenever the weather is dry. Yeah, yeah, and I remember it was the worst when we lived in Phoenix, Arizona, because it's really hot there and really dry. and there's no moisture in the air until monsoon season when you get all the rain. But the rest of the year, it's very dry there. But I never thought about it until we're talking about it because I had it, and then all three of my youth had it, and now two of my grandchildren. They get over hot, and their nose will just start bleeding. So yeah, but I had never thought about that because, of course, we didn't stick stuff up our nose like we was talking about in the chat. It was all about, getting a wet. My mom would always just have wet Kleenex, and she'd pack it just right where I could still breathe,
Right.
you know, but it was, I don't know, it would clot at that point. So Master Menelik says, I can relate, Chief Yuya. Sometimes you don't realize how much damage you may have taken until the adrenaline wears off. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Achoti Yafe says, I thought frequent nosebleeders are hemophilics. Or what do you? So I know that's a medical term, but hemophiliacs. So, yeah, I never, of course, we've got words in this day and age that we didn't have back in the day, which kind of tells my age a little bit, but that's okay. It's a whole new dictionary. So Ima Sequoia says, y'all were right on with the description though. And Yafe says, yay. And Chief says, yeah, I always felt like that, Master Miller, like it would be the next day trying to get out of bed, and I'd be like, okay, what the heck did you do? Once adrenaline is gone, you just perform. But yeah, I can imagine you don't feel anything when that adrenaline is going, but after everything comes back to normal, I can only imagine what you feel. And Iman Quia says many people who have been resuscitated and woke up have lots of chest pains as well due to compression given. I remember hearing someone say that also. And Ima Sequoia says, yes, it's because of the dry air, Chief Yuya. I just needed to drink more water and remain super hydrated.
And, and
Excuse me.
having a humidifier actually helps. You mentioned earlier on if that's something that I
Hmm.
would make sure you do that, or you have a large bowl of water in the room, always having a bowl of water. And you can add eucalyptus and other things that would help to soothe it. But yeah, just making sure you do those things that can be helpful because it helps to recycle moisture vapor, water vapor into the air. So it helps. It does help.
That's true because I think we all have humidifiers here in Colorado. It's really dry, so yeah, we all have humidifiers at this point. Chief Chief Yuya says even short, quick breaths have a purpose. Savta. Those are usually clavicle breaths, and you use those for quick bursts of energy when you need them. Ah, is that the? Did I pronounce that right? Clavicular, clavicular. I know what those quick breaths are, but I didn't realize that. I'm glad. Well, I know they must have kept me going at least till I got where I could get some oxygen. But yeah, and Master Menelek said, not the hogs, not hogs calling. We're talking about that snoring,
Uh, uh,
as calling hogs. And Chief said, so you drink or you bleed? Ima Sequoia, still weird. You need to learn how to earth bend or something. Make it make sense. Uh, And Ima says, when I think about all this, I think about those who need assistance with breathing. The ventilator gives breath when you're not able to breathe on your own. Yeah, and that just reminds me again how grateful and thankful I am each dawning when I can connect with the Most High, and I actually speak it out loud, when I say my dawning affirmatives, because I do have that breath, and that is a connection for me to not just think about, greeting the dawning and the Most High, but to actually speak it, to use my breath to speak that.
All right. It is 9:28. I know there's a lot going on in the chat. I feel like the chat has gotten away away from us. But there are a couple of people who jumped back onto the concept of breathing and breath, and are speaking to it more directly. So I'm gonna pull on some of it. Anna Radio says, I thought of anointing with Ruach Kodesh in terms of divine duties being assigned. Did you all come across anything related? I did not come across to anything related to Ruach Kodesh. Greetings. Ruach Kodesh being connected to divine duties. But it definitely makes me think about the spirit of anointing. It makes me think of the Greek Testament where we read about the Spirit being poured out on all people, and the picture everybody kind of talks about, and you see the tongues of the Spirit on top of all of the disciples and everybody who was around Christ. But as you share that, I actually think about what has, like some of what we've deliberated us or shared on in terms of that Spirit being poured out onto all. Chief says breathing is deep because it literally creates waves around you, long form waves and short form waves, depending on your awareness. Breath control is environmental control. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That rhythm, the vibration, the frequency, and your body being in sync. That was one of the topics that Savta Gertrude and I talked about. When people have a heart attack, it's because your body's out of sync. It's not in rhythm with the vibration and the frequencies, and it's not functioning and moving as one, which, you know, as he said, breath is deep because it literally creates waves around you. So yeah, that brings it home for me. And I see that we got a guest, Akote Yafe. I think she was gonna come and explain something I had a question about. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I was trying to stay behind the scenes, but it's okay. I did want to add to the what do you say? I put to Maria.
I said you came on with your camera.
I did. It was a mistake.
Yeah.
I did. I was like, I'm sorry. I did want to add to your build and give thanks for the build because as you were talking, like before you moved on, I came in a little late. I wanted to add about laughter because as I'm like looking at the chat and engaging in the chat, like I'm over here like cracking up. I'm thinking everybody else is cracking up. There's a lot of laughs in the chat, and it just made me think about laughter and how that's also connected to breath. And it was one thing like when I was younger, I always wanted to know like what's happening when we laugh and like your diaphragm's like literally like going up and down. But another thing that's happening is like stale air is being pushed out of your lungs and then also pulling in more oxygen and better air. Well, as better can be given like the environment that we have. But you know what I mean, like pulling in like better air. And so it brought me back to Chief's comment earlier about like the idea and being inspired and that breath going through every cell of your body. And so then thinking about how beautiful laughter is and how it can be, especially when you're surrounded by family. And I'm not talking about blood relatives, you know, I'm talking about community members, family, alike. And you're having that good time together, you're having that laughter. Like imagine all of the staleness that's being expelled and all the good, proper, appropriate air that's being taken in. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, thank you. That's a beautiful addition because just the idea of laughter, right? The idea of laughter and the frequency of the sound of laughter and how it affects you. It affects you internally and then it affects others. You know, you talk about it all the time, Yafe. You talk about the fact that, yeah, sometimes you laugh just because other people are laughing. And I don't figure it out yet, but I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, I know what you're talking about because sometimes it's just like, this is, you are just absolutely tickled right now, and even that's making me like feel tickled, just looking at a person go through the process of joy and enjoying. But it relieves depression, it releases stress, like there's so many healing properties to this all of the things that are directly connected to breath, and that idea of laughter, it helps to release depression and relieve some of that tension that we have, that we sometimes build up. And that anxiety, Chief mentioned something in the chat. I think we'll switch to it in a minute. But I'll pause after because I think I saw you wanted to jump on and share.
Oh no, I was actually looking at exactly what he was saying. So if you want to go ahead and read it, because it was connecting to what was just being said.
It says, even consider the smell of breath as an indicator. Often, when one has bad breath, it's because they have anxiety or their thoughts are reckless, driving people away from them. Hmm. Hmm. So wow. Wow.
There's a lot to be said in that. That's why I was shaking my head as I was reading it before you actually read it out loud, because it even just the idea that your thoughts affect your breath, you know, and that's just, again, it's all a part of that life force, that we were talking about coming into this, because yeah, and that's something I when I hear things like that, I always find that I have to really think on those things and relate them to myself, because I knew a friend of mine who went to the doctor because she always said, my breath is always so bad, and I don't know if it's something I'm eating, or and she thought it was a gastro problem, because she'd always use chew gum and use lots of mouthwash, and no matter what she did, as soon as the flavor went out of the gum or the mouthwash wore off, that same breath was, and so she walked around with her hand like this all the time. And then I remember she told me she went to the doctor, and I just remember her telling me about all these tests they wanted to do on her because they thought it had something to do with her gastro um, parts, whatever. But when he said even the smell of breath as an indicator, and it says that, because they have anxiety or their thoughts are reckless, driving people away from them. And that is pretty deep, because again, the things that our breath affects is not just the fact that, we can inhale and exhale, but it's the life force. It's the whole connection. So as we take it for granted, we miss out on so much, that is being affected by that divine breath or that life force, that spirit. that movement of air. So, yeah.
And I think it connects, not I think, it definitely connects to like or the driving point this evening, or the point that we're driving home this evening, just the idea of tapping into and tapping back into our Elohim and our creator. And that idea of catching your breath is, yeah, maybe catch that connection, allow for the will, or our will, to be in alignment with the will of our Elohim. Because then, if that's the case, then the thoughts will not be reckless, right? There won't be that anxiety, which is that preoccupation with stress and frustrations and all of these other things. That can cloud our thoughts, and then, as Chief said, affect that breath. And I think about what he shared a little bit earlier, which is the breath, how the breath affects the environment, right? So this is an exact example of the breath that affecting the environment. And I mean, yeah, we're talking about smell, but that in itself is affecting who's around you and the distance, and yeah, just this concept or conversation around breath is like, I didn't even expect it to go here. So thank you all for, like, go ahead, Yafe. I think you.
Um, it as you were talking, you and Savta Ahava, it reminded me of what Chief recently shared. I think it was the last podcast on the Jezebel. And he was talking about, like, and this was specific, the example was specific to a man, but and he'll correct me if I'm wrong. Um, the idea of, like, if you can control, if you can use the upper to control the lower, right? That's the best way I can remember it. And it makes me think of the thoughts, as he pointed out in the chat, and as you were pulling on the thoughts controlling the lower, like thinking about, like, the gut, right? Because a lot of things, like, sit in the gut, and that's also a reason why, like, you might have bad breath or things coming up. And so it's like, what are those thoughts that are also sitting in the gut, the lower portion, that create these horrible experiences or things that might come out of you because you're not using your upper to control the lower.
Greetings, Chief.
Oh,
Greetings.
peace, peace. Greetings,
Peace,
greetings.
Chief.
Good evening,
Peace.
sisters. Yeah, man. Yeah, so I just wanted to the that Safta Hava shared kind of caught my attention in terms of, the person she knew, or you knew rather, who had the breath issue, trying to figure it out. Because it's just, that's kind of heart wrenching. Whenever I hear about people who have these situations where it causes a total change in how they present themselves, like always covering their mouth and things like that, and it's just, it's different things. Sometimes people are insecure about their weight, so they always dress a certain way or sit a certain way or whatever. And I don't know, that I just, maybe that's always very sad to me, because it's a bondage, you know. So it just made me think, and I just, for anyone who may be experiencing something like that, bad breath, things like that, a lot of times that just, some, maybe some solutions for you that may work. A lot of times also it's a physical thing, in the sense that your breath may smell because you're not brushing your teeth properly, right? And I know you may say, like, I know how to brush my teeth, I'm an adult. But not brushing your teeth properly is actually also, it's a spiritual thing. It's not just that you're not doing the mechanics of brushing your teeth properly, right? So a lot of times there is something that may have happened to you, because, it's like, and I think it might have been on the radio, somebody said, talk about, but that experience is just like I said, when I went through my experience back, many years ago, when I was fighting, and how much I appreciated breath. You don't really think about it, You should more, but we don't think about it enough until you're struggling for breath. Then it's like, oh man, like I didn't realize how much I use my lung capacity at times. I just took it for granted. So a lot of times, if you're not exercising that part of you, there can be emotional things, there could be spiritual things, there can even be angers or vindictive sort of desires that are deep down in you that you haven't released. You see, so sometimes what will happen, and that's like old breath inside of you. It's still old breath, still old spirit. You see, so what happens is with things that are stale and old, they tend to have an odor, you know, and sometimes your focus is off because let's say something happens to you, right? And this goes to, I was sharing this, I think in the men's group. I don't know, I was sharing it somewhere, but I was speaking about just how we, sometimes how we process our emotions through ego as opposed to processing through truth. So let's say you have an experience with someone and you feel that they are the person that hurt you. So you experience that pain and then you hold on to the pain because this person hurt me. And you're not really releasing like you should. So you'll get the bad breath. And the thing is not that you have to release this person from blame, because a lot of times it's vindictiveness and our desire to want to get someone back, revenge, to pay someone back, that causes also those kind of conditions. Because what you're not acknowledging is that this is life. Life flows through everyone. So that person is not the problem. That person was only the messenger of that experience that I had to go through to feel that pain. So it's not about the person, it's about what's behind the person and me facing it and dealing with that. So a lot of times when you're unable to do that, you'll have breath issues. You'll have issues with your teeth and things like that. And sometimes it also comes from your inability to communicate um those things that are deep down in your mind, that maybe there's shame, maybe there's awkwardness, whatever it is, but it could be because you haven't established a healthy relationship with yourself to be able to have those conversations. So they stay down deep into your mind, and that translates later through bad breath. And you get those things out, just like children. Children talk to themselves all the time because they're not holding nothing. You know, children, if you they when they get in trouble and you send them to their room, they go in that room and they curse you out. They be pointing at the door, putting their middle finger up to the door, F you. When I'm 18, I'm gonna run away. You're never gonna see me again. you know, they let you have it behind that room. Oh my goodness. By the time you go to open the door, they're sitting on the bed reading the book. They always try to look innocent. you know, but they don't hold it. You see, they don't hold it. And that's an important thing because that's how they're also establishing a conscious relationship with themselves. So their conscious mind and their subconscious mind are in sync. You see, as unhealthy as that may sound, um, but they're always acknowledging how they feel with different aspects of their life and their experience. So you find that children usually don't have chronic bad breath. That's an adult thing, because we'll have things that don't sit right with us, and because they don't sit right with us, we don't know um how to express that. Some things could be revolting to us, and we don't know how to express that. A lot of times we're holding on to anger. Our anger becomes halitosis, because again, we have these thoughts of vengeance and things like that. um Sometimes we have trouble communicating things that have blocked us in life. You see, some of us have had abuse experiences in our childhood, and we have not communicated that, and as a result we feel filthy. So our breath, our spirit begins to smell filthy, and you're wondering, why do I have this chronic halitosis? Why do I have this chronic bad breath? And it's a communication issue. You see, so there's like so many, and this is just for anybody, because like I said, you shared that and it just kind of touched my heart. For anyone who is having experience like that, and they're like wondering, like, yeah, man, I'm always got the Lavoris in my mouth and the gum and all of this stuff, man, and I still can't get away from it, man. And sometimes too, you are saying things, you're putting, when we talk about the supreme mathematics, you put knowledge before wisdom. So you put proper thought. Wisdom is to speak. You put proper thought before you speak. Sometimes people will put wisdom before knowledge. They'll talk about stuff they don't know nothing about. And that causes also that condition, because now you're sending out erroneous spirits. You're sending out misinformation. Your ideas are not properly constructed. So the breath that's coming out of your mouth is the breath of someone who's not thinking before they're speaking. You see, so now whatever you present to the world is disagreeable with the pleasantness of the world environment. You see, and there needs to be more reflection inside sometimes in those moments, where you can, when even when you're communicating, ask yourself, am I communicating sincerity? Am I truly being sincere? Am I truly expressing kindness and benevolence? I won't even really say love, because nobody really knows what that is, but if you want to use it, am I really speaking from a place of love, or am I sending out other implications, for what's going down deep inside of me that I'm having trouble communicating and getting out? All of those things. For anybody who's having trouble with that, can't seem to get their teeth clean. Every time you brush your teeth, you run your tooth along them, your tongue, and there's always that fuzz. Like, man, I can't seem to get these teeth right, you know. Or again, I always have this breath. I brush my teeth, and then 30 minutes later, my mouth is stinking again. I can promise you, it is, if it's a chronic issue, it's going to be related to, like I said, bitterness that you're holding inside of you, that underlying rage that you hear me talk about with the Jezebel. If you're a person who gossips all the time, or you always have something slick and nasty to say about another person, you're always condescending, you know, all of those things will create that. I told a story one, and I'm gonna leave it alone here. I think I put it on my IG. So it was a while ago, years ago, maybe. The first time I met Twinkie Clark. Now, Twinkie Clark is she's a gospel artist back in the day. She's sung with the group out of Detroit called the Clark Sisters. It was her and her sisters, and they're all very talented women, very very talented. They came up out of the Apostolic Church, and but she was the one. She played organ, she wrote song, and she's an amazing organist and pianist. Like, she could just do that alone and be famous just for that. Then she wrote some really, really, really good songs at that time. She's an awesome choir director, and she revolutionized singing. People sing different today because of Twinkie Clark and the style that it was like a mix between jazz, R&B, and gospel, and they mashed it all together into this vocal style that you can't even actually reproduce. The only way to really listen to it is just to go back and listen to old Clark sister song. It's different when it's a family, it's genetics, and it's just they were able to do something that it's just weird and beautiful and amazing all at the same time. So she has always been one of my musical heroes from way, way, way back. And I got to meet her once. I was playing a show where she was at, and I waited and waited and waited for her to come off stage. And just so I just wanted to, like, thank her, just be there, what I mean, just be in her presence. And it just, I didn't, I just, I kind of froze up a little bit when she came off stage, and she touched my shoulder and she shook my hand and everything. And the one thing I remember from her, the one thing, and I talked about this for so long, was her breath. And I was like, man, she had the sweetest breath I ever smelled in my life. And you gotta imagine, it didn't smell like peppermints or nothing. It was something else, but it was so sweet. And this is after her being on stage for 45 minutes, singing and screaming and hollering and all of that. And she came, so your breath's supposed to be fun. You would think your mouth is dry. She had the sweetest breath. And I can, if I could make it into a perfume, I'm telling you, wear it. I can remember that smell to this day. She came up to me and she said something, and I just smelt it. So right, so just to give you an example of something. Now, of course, she's on stage, she's playing, she's singing, she's ministering. So what's coming out of her is the most pure aspects of what she is. She's channeling spirit from what she sees as being the creator. She's giving you her very, 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 very best. So all of the waves that's coming off of her, all of the spirit that's coming off of her is going to be the very, very, very best. And yes, it does have a smell, so just wanted to share that.
Wow, that does say a lot, Chief. I know Jason had asked a question in the chat a bit ago. He asked, how would someone deal with bad breath? And then he rephrased it and said, I should say, how do you deal with a child who has bad breath?
Well, it's the same things, but let's it's like I always teach you all, start with the concrete, then go to the abstract, right? So I mean, what is that child's eating regimen? Always start there. What are they eating? Right? And even if you might say, well, I'm sharing, I'm eating things that are, or I feed the child things that are decent, does it work for that child? Is the child getting enough water? Water is crucial in children. Sometimes you get children, they just love water. And then sometimes you get those ones, you know, you got to figure out all kind of ways to sneak the water to them, right? But you start with the concrete right there. And then after you get through the concrete, is it a eating issue or things like that? You want to start to look at, man, is this I don't know the age of this child, of course, but is this an envious child? Envy does that to children often. They're always looking at what another child has, and it may be warranted to some degree. There could be some problems at home, and they're looking at another child. Man, I wish I had that, or this or that. That creates that bubbling inside of them. That acid, even. If that child is holding on to rage, if that child has some level of distress, you'll find that, when you're looking at children. So that's you gotta communicate. That's a sitting down with the child and communicating with them. And you may not say, hey, your breath smells like garlic all the time, but you may have a conversation about nutrition, or about health, or about, are you upset about something? Are you angry about something? Because when you suppress your anger, you'll end up doing things like that. um you may also have to take a look at, is this child is this child just having issues with communication? Like, you may not even know what it is, but it's very difficult to remain in a good, happy, cheerful space if you always know that there's something down in you that is blocking you, right? So it's just like when I said, like, again, children, sometimes children don't brush their teeth properly. We know that one. They don't like to go to the back teeth. Because sometimes they have gag responses and things like that. But sometimes they just want to hurry up and get out the bathroom. Like, like, yeah, I'm done. See, you know. So um the inability in that sense, okay, my child is 5 years old, he went through a year of surgery from 1 to 2, right? He's probably distressed. He went through surgery from 1 to 2, right? And we think, well, he was such a baby, he was so young, he was a baby, he hardly remembers. That distress and that trauma is still in the body, you see. And again, go back to the cleaning of the teeth, right? Oftentimes we don't clean our teeth properly because we have different uh blockages, we have obstacles in our life. And that's a sign of that, when the teeth are not cleaned properly. You know, your teeth are your ability to break things down. And it's just like you break down obstacles. Something comes in my path, I bite through it, break it down. You know, so when we're not cleaning the teeth properly, that means we're not able to break things down. We're not able to move past our roadblocks, right? But I can tell you, you know, Jason, if your son is 5 years old, and you're saying he's had surgeries, there's trauma in the body, and he probably needs to express that trauma to you, right? And of course, at 5, what is he going to say? Yeah, Dad, I got PTSD, right? So obviously, he's not going to express it in that sort of way. But what you need to do, what I advise you to do, you do what you want to do. It's your baby. What I advise you to do is have conversations with your son around his dreams, right? Start with the dreams. That's the easiest. And what will happen if you start asking him about dreams? He may first tell you, I don't remember. He may lie and make up something. Children like to do that. Doesn't matter. If he makes up something or he tells you a real dream, it's all real. So that's what you want to pay attention to when he wakes up. Oh, what's you dream about? And just make it a habit, you know. And I know, Jason, as a man, sometimes it's more difficult for us to hide our concern because it radiates off of our body. But you gotta be an actor. You gotta lie. you know, you gotta be like, hey buddy, hey, how'd you sleep last night? Hey, what you dream about? You gotta try to make sure he feels comfortable and he feels safe sharing it, right? Another thing with children oftentimes also is their level of efficacy, right? They get to a certain age where they look at you, they look at other people, and they decide if they can do what you can do. And if for some reason they cannot, they start to feel a way about it. One of my babies was like that. My children are all highly athletic, like super duper athletic. One was not as athletic. But she always wanted to run and do everything and flip over and everything like that. But she would get hurt every time. And she would play it like I'd see her belly fade, like we put the slip and slide in the backyard. She'd always belly flop and would get up and would not say anything. And I'd be looking at her like, oh, she's hurt. And I'd say, sweetheart, you want to go? You want to go again, or you want to come over and help Baba? I help you, Baba. Right? You need to catch your breath. You just belly flopped. I saw what happened. You know, there'd always be stuff like that. Or if they're running down a hill and they want to flip over, she'd be the one that would lay down first and then just roll down that way, right? You know, and because I kept my eye on it, I would always just, because she's also has that thing like me where it's like, even though I can't do it, I'm doing it. If I'm scared, I'm going to beat up the fear. So she inherited that, you know. Um, so that helped to remove that sense of embarrassment, right? But if a child does not have that reinforcement, when they get to the age of efficacy, they'll feel incomplete. They'll feel like failures, and it will happen at a very young age, right? You could take them to the park, and this used to happen with my children all the time. They see the quote unquote big kids, right? You take them to the baby side of the park where they get to sit into the swings and get strapped. They don't want to do those. They want to do the big kid swings. You know, you really can't do the big. You're gonna fall, right? But okay, all right, let's go over there, break your neck, whatever, So, or you want to go to the big kids jungle gym, and you're gonna get up there and then be scared. And Baba, can you come get me? Baba, come get. I know where this is going, right? But sometimes if they're not able to feel some level of affirmation in those experiences, then they'll start to feel like all of their ideas that they come up with are poor ones. And as a result, they'll feel embarrassed all the time. That will create halitosis because it's that internal and embarrassment now that will now cause them to say things and to do things without proper information. You see, they'll just go launch out and do it because whether I think about it or not, it's not going to work out for me. I have this underlying embarrassment. I'm telling you, they could be 4 or 5 years old. You gotta learn how to really love your children, man. I tell you, boy, you gotta learn how to really love those babies. And what I mean by love those babies, you gotta learn how to watch their every twitch. Watch them, watch them, watch them. And when you really love something, you learn it inside and out. You know, you learn them inside and out, and you'll start to see even at young ages. So don't think you have to wait, Jason, until your son's the age where he can articulate these things. He's already articulating it, but you got to watch when he's playing with his, like, if he got little soldiers that he smashes together, make them fight. Listen to the things that he's saying when they're getting ready to fight. You see, listen to what he names things. Oh, this is my toy so and so. This is my doll. What's his name? Pay attention to all those different things. See, that's that love, man. We gotta love them so much, man, that it's like, man, I see through your ass like glass. You gotta be like that with your children, man. And you'll see that when you start to pay more attention to how they present themselves, how they communicate, and how they implement their ideas. That's when you can start uh emotionally and psychically digging into their spirit and driving away what is not working for them, or that's blocking them from being able to present their real self or communicate, and you have to do it in a very uh, spiritual and loving way. You can't be samurais with children. You can't do that. You can hardly ever do that with children. And I have grown children now. My children are older now. I'm still not a samurai. You see, it's still, hey man, take this drive with me. I got to go do this. Or sweetheart, what you doing tomorrow night? What y'all up to? You hanging out with your friends? All right, cool. Well, you need a lift back, or you know, I'll call you on the phone while you're walking over there. Let's rap. Come help Baba do this or whatever. You still got to be super strategic. You still can't be a samurai. And I know sometimes as a man, that's difficult, but that's the blessing that children provide for us. Because sometimes we're not into our women that much. We dig them, but we don't dig them that much. Where they break that part. But your babies will. Your babies will force you to, like, oh damn, I had somewhere to go. Now I'm sitting here in this little freaking chair drinking imaginary tea. And I actually am thirsty. you know. But this is important. I need to do this. This is important. you know so things like that, man. So I'm just saying, the way you get rid of your son's challenge, the biggest tool that you have is your love, is learning them. And you can even ask your son, and I don't mean to take up the whole show, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna end it with this. It's just, when it comes to the babies, Baba love the babies. But you can do things to start doing, because I know, Jason, you're a martial artist. Start doing breathing exercises with your son. And when your son exhales, ask him, what does your breath smell like? You see? And see what words he uses to describe his breath. Right? And then what you can do things like get some spearmint leaves, or you can even get some lavender. Give him a little bit of it. Then do the exercise again. What's your breath smell like? Oh, it smells good. It smells like the tea mommy makes or whatever, right? Then don't give him the lavender spearmint and try to make that smell again. You see? So he'll be in tune with his own breath in that sense. And that's a way for him to start connecting to his subconscious mind. So that, I'm just gonna say that, man. I don't want to take, I could talk about this for a long time, man. But that's what I would say, man. That's where you start. But you gotta, man, you gotta make that boy you gotta be like a scientist. Put that boy under a microscope, and you gotta look at everything. So I'm just gonna say that.
Well, thank you so much, Chief. I mean, it's always a pleasure to get an opportunity, because those jewels you be dropping, they be fitting in all over the place for everybody. I mean, it may not be the exact same thing for Jason, and I'm so thankful that you were able to give him some tools. But it's always a pleasure, and it's always good when we get to hear that wisdom and that knowledge. So, at any time, at any opportunity, it's always a pleasure. So, I will throw this back at you, Akoti Moreyah. And Akoti Yafe, you look like you wanted to say something, did you?
No, not if y'all are about to wrap up. I have something to add to the announcements, but that's about it. I mean, I have some more to say, but no, I won't hold it up.
No, I appreciate I really appreciate your share and you bringing it to a practical place because yeah the we this is the way to end in a sense because we were going to do pranayama and just do some breathing exercises to close off but that bringing that idea of like what's actually happening on a spiritual level with halitosis or with it may not be halitosis, it may just be this is what's happening now because we, I, you, whoever still has this stuff lodged inside. It's still in there, here, um, and it's affecting everything else. Yeah, and when you talk about the it affecting our environment as well too, I can't stop thinking about that piece you shared earlier, which is like it pushes people away. It pushes people away. So that subtle transfer of the thoughts to the environment, through the air, through the molecular structure of everything around us. Yeah, I think it's practical. It's practical. So we got both parts of it in our bill today. And Naya speaks about when we love someone, we have to offer that person the best of what we have. The best thing we can do is offer that other person our true presence. And you offered your true presence because you pulled on some things after shared and you chief and you decided to come on in and give us even more. So I appreciate that because yeah, it's practical. It's that practical piece that we're missing. So we have that balance. We're not just all heavenly, but we are earthly good too. So,
That's that light we be needing. But that was really good. I heard a lot of things, even for myself, and it caused me to even think about my grandchildren and how we pay attention and how we are present and, with others that we say we love. And it also made me think about our community that we say we love, you know, um, and how we are to embrace that divine breath. And because as Chief was saying, and he connected it with everything else we said, it affects everything we do. And the way we think, the way we move, our environment. So there are so many layers to that breath. And yeah, I really enjoyed the build and everything that came with it, all the things in the chat and the gut punches and and Master Menelik had said something about the Matrix. We can't even get out of here without addressing, because he talked about, and it was a while ago, he talked about something that was said reminded him of a scene in the Matrix. Yeah, I think it's way back there. I'll have to go back and read it, because Chief did respond to it as well. But
It was
yeah,
when Neo killed Agent Smith, and after
yeah,
that, he took this very deep breath, and when he breathed, the whole environment breathed with him, and it expanded and contracted along with him. Yeah.
There it is. That was what it
Yeah.
was. I knew it was something that I was like, wow, okay. Because again, it speaks on that breath and how it affects everything, So we're responsible to make sure that we have that connection, that divine breath of Yah, especially belonging to a community and a culture as we are here in the new. And I always want to just extend that hand of that invitation. If you wonder why we're so, you know, the way we are, take a peek, take a look at the new way and listen to the many, many podcasts. I mean, you can learn so much about a new just by following Chief Yuya podcasts and a New Life Global Ministry. You get a really in depth look at this community and this culture. So just wonder, I can't be as grateful, any more grateful and thankful that I am. So,
I am. We should be closing. We should be closing, but I can't. There's the from what you shared, Chief, too. Like I am constantly. I'm thinking about how important it is to unpack those emotions to it goes back to that self-care episode that you gave to us, and just digging into the emotions, not just hiding them or pushing them down, or ignoring them, because they begin to affect all aspects of our body, you know, spiritual and physical. So that unpacking and really taking a look at what those emotions are and the expressing of them, that communication piece. Like I think those are really important points. Everything you said is important. All of it, all of it, all of it. But as you shared, it really goes to show how, you know, as an adult, we have to unpack those. And as adults, when we have, like, we're around youth, we have to know what those techniques are to get them to unpack those emotions, and so that they don't become like a, is achoti yafe shaking? Is anyone seeing like the screen glitching or something? I just, oh, yeah, so as adults, it's important for us, and I work with youth. So a lot of what you shared here tonight too, I'm like, gonna go back and take even more notes as well too. I know they're not my children, so there's only so much, you could affect in their lives, but it's really important to pay attention to those and to help them, to guide them through that unpacking of their own emotions, so, and experiences. So thank you. I don't know if anyone is it. You wanted to go? Sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, I will share like I'll just kind of piggyback on what you just said about it's gonna come out, right? So like I think she said, like you may not even be brushing your teeth properly. Like so it affects like your self-care. And so or it'll come out like you said, like it'll come out like maybe it'll come out in like ticks, something that we do. Maybe it comes out in like the words we say, like whatever slick things we say, like because it's kind of just sitting down in there. And so it messes with all aspects of your breast because you're keeping in all that stale stuff. So then what's happening to the cells that would have been, received like that renewed energy by taking in like, clean air or fresh oxygen, but it's not. It's just getting like push, 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 push further down to the point where it's like you'll even start looking on the outside like I don't even care. Like so, yeah. Like yeah, that's it. That's all I'm gonna say.
And what is suppressed becomes like mangled looking and morphed and like mutations almost. As you were saying that, that packing down, it made me think of mutated emotions, mutated feelings. Um, but we're gonna close. And I wanted to know if everyone on here would like to join us for a little bit of breathing before we close this evening. We won't stay on too long. We'll probably just do a quick, like let's breathe and be gone. But we did not want to close off this evening. I know you have announcements, Sister Yafe, so I don't know if you want to do those and then we can close.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, but for those of you who are on and you because we have 17 at this point, please find a comfy chair. Make sure your feet are flat on the floor. You know the drill. Make sure your feet are flat on the floor and you are sitting in a chair where you have a straight back so you can sit up. But if you want to lay down in um banana sana, I'm joking. If you want to lay down in what is it called?
Vasana. Vasana.
Yeah, Vasana. What is it called?
Savasana or corpse pose.
Savasana. Yeah, corpse. I didn't want to say corpse. Yeah, Savasana is fine. If you want to lay out in Savasana to do this, feel free to do so. It's your opportunity to put yourself in a position where you know you'll be able to expand the diaphragm freely. If you're wearing anything that can be restricting, what we read in the surah about the restricting of the breast. So, try to remove anything that would restrict that diaphragm from moving freely. Sister Yafe, go ahead, and then after that, we'll close off with a breathing exercise.
Okay, I'll make it quick because this is a treat when you lead meditation, and I think everybody knows what happens to me when you lead the meditation. So I'm going to turn my camera off. So very quickly, I just wanted all of our listeners and also our members to know that we have solidified our space for the retreat, as Chief mentioned on the podcast, and I think a strong ago, our retreat has been pushed back to August. So we will be traveling to New Orleans. We'll be going to NOLA August 24th through August 28th. The new location is on the website. We will be at Bayou Signet State Park in our own reserved private facility. As mentioned, like the cost for the retreat is all inclusive with the exception of your travel, and you'll be bringing your own bed clothing. But you can look at the frequently asked questions for everything that you'll need for the retreat on our website, anulifeglobal.org. So if you have any questions, the phone numbers on the website, you can either email staff at anulifeglobal.org or you can call the phone number if you have further questions other than what is on the frequently asked questions. It is a family retreat. If you don't have family, we will be your family, and we look forward to everyone being there and joining us. It'll be a lot of fun. You're on mute. What?
Sorry. I was asking if you had any quick updates about the upcoming Red Wrap events.
Yes, we do have our Red Wrap event coming up this coming strong. So we have several sisters who are joining us on both days. We're saying event, but it's actually two events. So we're having our packing and wrapping event on Wednesday, or Yom Revi, May 24th from 12 to 3. If you are in the Raleigh area and you do want to help out, you can go to the website and click the volunteer button. That's anulifeglobal.org/Red Wrap. And you can click the volunteer if you'd like to join us on Wednesday. And then we have our workshop and giveaway event with the Raleigh Rescue Mission, and we'll be doing that in the dawning with the women who are residents there. So give thanks for all of you who have sent donations, whether it was products or you contributed to our GoFundMe. Big shout out to the honeypot.co as well. They sent us a very generous donation for this event as well. So give thanks.
So get yourselves ready. Thank you so much again, Chief. I know there's a lot of chatter and communication going on in the chat, so we'll leave that there and we will close off with what is considered one of several forms of pranayama or pranayamic breathing. We will use what's called the alternate nostril breathing just to close off our evening. This is something that You can use to, ease yourself into rest at night. Maybe you're having a hard time going down. Maybe you're having a hard time. Maybe you're having a hard time at work or wherever you are, and you just need to breathe to refocus and recenter yourself. You have to want maybe you want to get rid of anxiety in the moment, and those, these are some activities that you can use. It's a healing modality. So make sure you're seated with your spine as straight as possible. Your feet are flat on the floor. Make sure you're not crossing your legs at the ankles or crossing your feet at all. Make sure you are seated and your legs are straight. Form a 90-degree angle with your knees so that way that energy can move and flow freely. And you feel free and easy to breathe as well. You can close your eyes. That's always helpful because it helps to give you that focus. We'll take 3 breaths in and out. We are only breathing through the nose. We are not using our mouth. We are not doing mouth breathing this evening. So as you breathe in for the first time, make sure that air fills your diaphragm and allow your stomach to feel as if it's expanding, right? Remember, you're breathing using that diaphragm, that area where your diaphragm is. You're trying not to allow the chest to move that much because the chest does not expand as much as the diaphragm, that lower area does. As you breathe out, allow for your stomach to flatten. Imagine your navel is trying to touch your spine. All right, don't force anything as well. Breathe in again. Exhale. Breathe in again. And remember, as you're breathing in, allow your stomach area and the diaphragm to expand. Exhale. You are going to use your right hand, and with your right hand, take your thumb and hold down the right nostril, allowing for your left nostril to be free. Imagine you're about to pinch your nose. Allow your index finger to just touch the left nostril, but don't push it down at all. You're going to begin to breathe in through the left nostril and exhale through the left nostril. Use your index to push down on the left nostril, releasing your thumb. Inhale through the right nostril. And when you get to capacity, exhale, holding down that right nostril with your thumb. Release your index and open up your left nostril passageway and breathe in. And exhale, holding down the left nostril. So you notice you're alternating. Breathe in. Exhale. Left nostril, breathe in. Exhale. Right nostril, breathe in. Exhale. Continue to move effortlessly through the left and right nostril, making sure to breathe in and out before switching to the side. Paying attention to the ease of the breath. Continue to move at your own pace, remembering to cover with the thumb and breathe in and exhale. Then cover with the index, breathe in and exhale. And you will keep alternating for another 10 of these. Breathing in, exhale. Breathing in, exhale. Breathing in, exhale. Breathe 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 in, exhale. Last two. Breathe in, exhale. Breathe in, exhale. Gently remove your hands, and if your eyes were closed, open them slowly. But if you are laying in Savasana, you may continue to, repose. And I bid you all a good evening. Breathe and do not forget to tap into your creator and channel that divine breath. Peace, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.